Hi all, and welcome to our webinar today on Microsoft Office 365 Backup for Remote Workers. This is being presented to you by OffsiteDataSync, a J2 global business. My name is Jim Jones. I am a senior cloud architect here at OffsiteDataSync.
And my name is Karinne Bessette. I'm a technologist with the product strategy side at Veeam, and I was invited here to kind of help tell the story of how our partners bring a lot of value to the Office 365 product.
So today we're going to talk about quite a few things. To start with, we're going to talk about the acceleration in Office 365 adoption and talk about the native ways that Microsoft does data protection in that service, the shared responsibility and key considerations when it comes to that data protection, retention policies. Then we're going to talk about OffsiteDataSync's product for this backup. And finally, we'll close with an exclusive promotion to you guys that have joined the webinar.
Office 365 has become a huge part of everyday business, and especially with the advanced of remote workers, we've seen an explosion of 12 million new users added in just 1 week, leaving us with 44 million active users that are going to require backup and recovery. Now, one thing we don't realize with, let's see here, let's see the next, that a lot of these remote workers open up the software to potential additional attacks that may not have been considered prior to this work at home life that we're now living in. That being remote devices, whether you have your email on your phone, plus your computer, and every other device that makes it convenient. You can log into your email via web browser even. Those devices are not under the control of, say, your organization, so they may not contain the proper patches, nor do they have proper security protocols in order to protect your data properly. That being said, we also have to worry about when we're coming to a home life that most home routers don't have anything like physical firewalls or an optimized security settings on those objects in place. And let's not to mention public Wi-Fi. It's just a breeding ground for all kinds of attacks. If you're not on a VPN when you're on a public network, you probably deserve to have your data taken.
Well, but luckily there's lots of products that we have that help with that, right, Corinne?
Yep, and we're about to cover that and how we can make it even easier. Now, and I would say one of the most, or number one causes of data loss is accidental deletion. We have all deleted the wrong item before and had to scurry to try to get that back. And that just, it's going to become even more prevalent, especially with like SharePoint and OneDrive and collaborative sites. You're not only sharing your information with internal parties, but you're sharing this out to external parties that you have to share information with, and there's just more people that are going to have their hands on that information. You want to make sure you can recover it in case of accident.
Yeah, I will add, we've all been there, and that's a big part of my life as an admin has been working with that myself,
That and password resets.
and password resets. But the next one of the other reasons why this is really important when it comes to Office 365 is one of the things we're going to talk about here in a little bit is, there's a big gap and a lot of confusion around what the world thinks Microsoft does in terms of its protection of your data in Office 365 and what that reality is. So, so we will cover that a few slides along from now.
You have to be very vigilant on how your data is being protected, and especially the contractor siding. You have to consider what if you have an internal threat or even an external threat from ransomware, rogue apps, a disgruntled employee that knows he's on the way out the door and the administrators didn't cut his credentials in time. Or say even a malicious employee that you have already terminated from your system, now there's some type of litigation.
Yeah.
or that you have to come back and get that user's data in order to prove in court that you are not at fault for or liable for some type of accident, which could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars if you don't have that data saved somewhere.
Yeah, no, and that's just one of the problems that comes up when we talk about the legal and the compliance requirements when we talk about Office 365 data. Because, I mean, sit back and think about it and wrap your brain around what all constitutes Office 365 data. All of these used to be massive segments of our data centers. You know, we had the email silo, and we had the chat and collaboration silo, and the file storage silo. These are all rolled up into one big thing now. And when we talk about the legal, yeah, we have situations where we might have a malicious type of situation. But, you know, myself, I come from, my previous job was working in small government. And in that situation, it was FOIA request after FOIA request after FOIA request that often we would have to provide information years after the event happened to the media, or, you know, whatever kind of legal situation you run into. And then finally, the last reason why you really have to think hard about a Microsoft Office 365 backup solution is what you're going to do during the interim. You know, this is, as I just said, a big project. And for any of us that are on this webinar, either we've already been through this and looked at how we're going to do the deployment, or we're getting ready to get into that. And very rarely is that a quote unquote overnight solution. Often this can take, you know, weeks, months, you know, in some situations possibly years, as you start moving little portions of that information from point A to point B. And what you don't want to find yourself in a situation of is, you know, yeah, I've got good backups online, but these people that we're moving to the cloud, you know, they're just the Wild West. So we definitely want to get away from that. So Ren, you know, we talk, how many people, you know, what are we running into these days? And how do we know that we're running into these problems?
Well, we sent out a survey, and it wasn't exactly a survey of if you've lost data before, but how you have lost data before. And we had 1,500 or over 1,500 people respond to this survey, and a solid 37% of those people say that accidental deletion was the #1 cause of missing data in their infrastructure. And I think that's even going to explode more with those collaborative shared SharePoint sites. They're becoming an industry standard for organizations to have projects with collaborative data. And then we're taking a look at, we asked the same kinds of groups of people, how many people are backing up the Office 365 data? And we were shocked. 57% of people are not backing up that data, even though they've experienced data loss before. And I think it's just a conception of how the data is being protected and who's actually responsible for what side of that data and that type of data retention that is expected.
Yeah, it's just the cloud, right? Everything, once you put it in the cloud, everything's great. That's how it works, right?
Oh, if only.
Yep. So we kind of hinted to this a little bit before. So, you know, that mindset is just that, you know, I don't, you know, there's the, you know, I put it in the cloud, and once I put something in the cloud, well, it's just now taken care of. You know, we think about, you know, if I'm entrusting that in over there, Microsoft is, you know, in charge of the infrastructure, but they're also in charge of making sure that my data is going to be available at any point in time that I actually need it. Well, the reality of it is that Microsoft has what's called a shared responsibility model. This is very well written up on the internet or in their documentation. And effectively what it boils down to, Microsoft, their responsibility stops at the infrastructure. They will make sure that the computer systems and all the things underneath the covers and the user interfaces that you need to access that data, that's what they're responsible for. But the actual data that you and your organization generate, well, that's our problem. That's what, you know, us as administrators have to make sure that we're in charge of. We have to be mindful of what that data is, make sure that it is protected, and make sure that we have the long-term retention of that data as needed as well. Now, so Ren, so you want to talk a little bit about what the defaults are?
Yeah, so Microsoft Office 365 does have what you consider a hard delete and a soft delete cycle. The hard delete cycle is where your data is no longer accessible, but there is a slight threshold where your data is available for average here, you see about 30 days after the item has been deleted or archived, or even for OneDrive and SharePoint sites, recycling bin removed permanently. Something we also seen in the field is that most organizations don't realize that they're missing data until almost 140 days later, outside of a lot of these retention threshold cycles, which means they're not able to recover anything that they need, especially for, again, those employees that leave the company. You may still need that data for contracts that you have active that employee was in charge of, or any type of civil suit they come back for you. If they feel like they were treating it unfairly and you're not able to provide documentations and exchanges on company forms, there's a very high chance you're not going to win that argument against that employee, which
Yeah.
again costs more money.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you, I've been in IT for quite a while now. Let's just leave it at that, right? And I can't tell you how many times over the course of my career I've run into situations of, you know, a year, 2 years later, this requirement to provide some information has come up, and you're sitting there going, do I have this information or do I not? And if you're looking at using the Veeam backup for Office 365 product, there's probably a better than none chance that you're also using the backup and replication product as well. And we're all very well versed with the idea that we need to do staged and tiered backups for that kind of information, so that we have long-term retention for the things that we have to have long-term retention to. Why do we not think that that applies to this new frontier of Office 365 data? That's not reality. Well, so at OffsiteDataSync, so what we do is we give you forever retention when you sign up for your Office 365 data. So whatever you've got in your backup jobs, as long as those jobs exist and continue, then that data is, we do forever retention. So there's not a rollout time on the back end. There's not any of that information. We're going to keep those backups. So this retention, this hard delete and this soft delete that Karinne was talking about, while you would see that in the production grade information, when you actually look at your backups, we're going to see what is there, 5+ years from now. We're also going to see, an employee leaves the company, you deactivate their offsite data or their Office 365 data. But when you get into your backups, we're going to be able to show you that to you, as far back as you want to see it.
I would have to say the conversation of litigation hold comes up a lot when we start talking about keeping that retention of data. Whenever it comes to litigation hold, the deleted employees is the best argument. Microsoft makes you pay for an additional licensing and space to keep that employee open in a litigation hold. On the Office 365, you're still paying for that user, when you could have an encompassing backup product take care of that for you.
Right. Well, Karinne, one of the things, so one of the things that's a major positive to OffsiteDataSync's variation on the Veeam backup for Office 365 product is that forever retention and the way that we sell the product. So we sell the product for one low per user per month rate. So that user has 100 megabytes of information in their Office 365 account, we got you. That user has 10 terabytes of information in there, well, we still got you. We've got this taken care of, and we have the expertise available inside of our team to make sure that that is well taken care of now and for as long as you need that information protected. So let's talk a little bit more about the OffsiteDataSync product for Office 365 backup. So we've talked a little bit about it already. So yes, so we retain that information forever. It is based on the latest and greatest versions of Veeam's backup for Office 365 underneath the covers. So, you know, it's still got that Veeam, you know, warm and fuzzy feeling that many of you have. It's pretty simple. So, you know, if you've played around with the product, the user interface for Veeam Backup for Office 365 is really, really good, but it's a static application. Well, we're a service provider, so that doesn't work so well for us in getting you the best to it. So we developed our own web-based user interface to the Backup for Office 365 product that is actually award-winning at this point. Onboarding is extremely simple, and actually doing backups and restores is simple as well. But you know, we keep coming back to the compliance. But you know, at the end of the day, that's a lot of what we're all getting into with backup. But we take care of that for you as well. So what's in the portal? So when we talk about the portal, for those of you that might already be OffsiteDataSync customers, we provide in a single portal access to managing both your backup, or excuse me, not both, but your backup, your replication, as well as your backup for Office 365 products within the same user interface. In the Office 365 portion of it, you can do all the care and feeding you would like to on Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, and OneDrive. We'll, you know, throw out there that Teams is not the most supported thing, but that will be coming soon. But that's a overreaching product, but we can absolutely access that Teams data as well. You can restore, we have various ways, but you know, I can sit here and talk about this all day long. It's probably best if we actually just show it. What do you think, Ren? You want to try a live demo?
Let's go for it.
Here. So at this point, so what we've done, you'll notice that we have a Office 365 services window here. And for the purposes demo, we used Karinne's demonstration Office 365 account, the Aperture Labs account. And we've actually already gone through and set up a backup job that's been running for a few days. It's looking pretty good.
It's super easy to set up. I logged in a couple of moments, my job was already running.
Yeah, but you know, so in order to, you know, make sure we don't take up too much of your all's time, we're really gonna highlight, to me, what is always the most important part. You know, as a longtime Veeam fan, I've heard more times than I can count. Backup's important, it absolutely is, but what's more important than backup? Being able to restore that information. So if it works, then we're living life pretty good. So we've got our organization here, just kind of a quick overview. So we know a lot of things about the organization, or excuse me, you know a lot about the organization right here. So there's 127 total mailboxes. We're only backing up one.
Me.
Yeah, her. And because of the contract that, you know, Karinne signed up for here, she's got a 50 mailbox limit for what she can back up. We're going to go down here and let's take a look at restore points. So as you can see, we've got quite a few here. This all looks good. Let's see what we've got here. So Karinne, do you mind if we go ahead and just browse this latest restore point?
Let's go for it. I want to see my data.
There we go. All right, so we've been playing around with this a little bit today already, as you can tell. So there was some sessions already opened. If we go in here, we can take a look and we see the latest one is a OneDrive restores. So we're going to go right here to OneDrive Explorer. And if you're, you know, like I said, if you're a Veeam person and you've done restores before in the past, you're used to the idea of the explorers. These are the same explorers that actually you guys are going to use, that you've been using for guest file systems, for Exchange information, and for SharePoint that you use in the, say, the Veeam backup and replication. We're just putting it into the web. So, you know, if I'm an utter cowboy here, or if somehow we've just blown away our entire account, I can come right here to restore, and I can restore this entire OneDrive straight out to the original location. I can also, put it to a zip file, send it to email, all kinds of things. Now, how often does that happen? I don't know about you, Karinne, but in my experience, having to restore everything is pretty rare. It's usually, oops, I deleted this folder, or oops, I deleted this file.
I can't say that I've recalled deleting my entire OneDrive before, but I'm definitely missing some files.
All right, so to do some files, we can go here to Browse OneDrive. And so now we can actually see everything from the latest backups that we've got. So let's say, Karinne, you deleted this Neon Velocity page, right?
Yeah, it was a website page document that I thought we were done and no longer needed, but the partners I handed it to seem to have lost the documentation, so now I have to provide it.
Oh no. So what we can do now is just click here on Actions, and we're going to restore this document to the original location. Now that's going to pop up a window here. Now, Karinne, do you mind to drive and throw your credentials in there?
I sure can try.
Maybe.
Let's see here. I think I still need access to remote
Oh,
control.
okay. How about now?
Let's see.
There we go. All right, so these credentials are actually what you use to access Office 365. So, in this situation, she is an administrator of it, so she has capability. She could potentially also be doing this to herself, to her own, or she is doing this to her own account. But let's say as an administrator, you are restoring one of your employees or one of your coworkers' information. Yeah. It may be nice to be able to put in that we provide an additional email option so that you can put the end user's email address in there, so that as soon as the restore session is done, that end user is actually going to get notified automatically from the system. So as you can see, we're going to overwrite. So you do have the option, if you don't want to do that, from the actions menu, to say, I don't want to override. It looks like you got the wrong password in there, Ren. Unfortunately.
I'm going to blame the remote session because I don't want to admit anything, but it looks like it's doing something.
Yeah. Okay, well, we can take a look at that. So if we go here to all jobs, oops, we can go to the restore log. This is going to show us what's going on. I tell you what,
progress.
I stand corrected.
And I can actually go ahead and, if you don't mind,
yeah,
let's see if we can see that file.
That'd be great.
Keep in mind, this was not tested beforehand, so...
Yeah, the joys of the live demo, right?
I insisted.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
All right. Let's refresh
the
screen.
We are
says
successful.
It's successful. Let's see if it's there. We're gonna head over to OneDrive. And hey, my page is back, and you can see that it's updated with the last modify date, the last time I accessed that file, because we restored back to the original location. It restores all of those properties for me.
That's, this is what we're looking for, right? We want to keep that chain going correctly. So with that, now all we need to do is to go back to our job here. So we know everything is here. So what we do is we actually leave these sessions open. Often in situations, let's say we've had somebody in messing with some file shares and has removed some information from multiples, we may need to restore multiple things. So this session is still open. But what we can do now is we can go here to restore sessions and go ahead and hit stop session. And that's going to go ahead and close out that backup file and make sure it's good for everything. Now, this step is actually optional. We will do it in the background, but we in the IT field, we tend to be very careful about what we want to make sure we're doing, right? Leave no boxes unchecked. All right, so switching back to the presentation. We're getting pretty close to wrapping up, actually. This is going pretty quick, right?
Well, we have no questions. We expected a more interactive audience here.
Yeah. Do we have any questions? Let's see. Is there anything in the chat?
I don't see any in chat. I encourage questions. I love questions during live presentations.
Absolutely. So if you got anything, feel free to throw it in there.
Maybe they know everything. They're just watching us for fun.
There you go. Well, there's ways to deal with that as well. If you think you know it all, and then you find out, you've got some questions after the fact, on the front slide, we included both of us included our Twitter handles. Ren is VRen. It's VRen, correct? VRINNE.
Yep.
And I am Kool-Aid IT with zeros. At any point after this, you're welcome to reach out to us and hit us up with questions, whatever. I'm happy to talk to you about any of those kind of things. Before we completely close up the session, I would like to add that here at OffsiteDataSync, we are currently running a promotion that with a purchase of Office 365 cloud-to-cloud backup, we will be throwing in a terabyte free of the regular Veeam backup and replication cloud backup as well. That's not too shabby. That's a terabyte that you have. I believe that the promotion is for an entire year, which is pretty handy.
Was wearing green a prerequisite? I'm gonna say maybe, but I also would like to point out this is my official Veeam backup for Office 365 jacket.
Yes, it is very nice. Very nice. So then with that, we have a couple other things coming up. So I don't know about you, Karinne, but I'm pretty excited for Veeam on Virtual coming. That is June 17th and 18th, if I'm correct. Yep. And so both of us actually have sessions. I will be in one that I love the name of it, which is It Seemed Like a Good Idea at the Time with Veeam's Joe Hughes and Matt Crape from VMware. Karinne, you want to talk a second about what you're presenting on?
Mine will be the Office 365 infrastructure. I'll be joined by Edward Watson and Achana from IDC. So there's some official types of data and information that we're going to be pulling down and why the Office 365 is so important.
Yeah. And then also along those lines so as a follow-on to this webinar I will be doing another one on June 6th at 11 a.m. with Anthony Spiteri, where we're going to be talking about disaster recovery and Veeam backup and replication V10, which is one of my favorite topics. So looking forward to that. Go ahead, Karinne.
It's not on here because I got kind of thrown into it very, very last minute, but tomorrow I'm going to be covering OpEx and CapEx modeling with VBO and kind of how that looks and the difference between those two types of models and reasons why you might use either on LinkedIn Live through the Veeam website. So it's also with the Office 365 offerings.
Oh, that's great. That sounds, shit, I'm going to go sign up for that right after we get done here. So with that, I see we do actually have a couple questions now.
So I think the one here, for retention, do you want to save items forever? Can you remove them from the retention policy? I think that's directed towards the Offsite DataSync process.
Correct. So Kelly, absolutely. We have the capability through backup and replication so like I said, by default, we do forever replication, forever retention. We can, as you go to sign up, do some things in terms of having different retention buckets for you as well, essentially the repositories. But by default, we default to saving everything. And then, Karinne, there's a question about why not just use the Office 365 restore option?
So the Office 365 restore option works for, again, those soft and hard delete retention cycles, but you also have to consider your administrator wears a lot of hats. They are in charge of so many things anymore to learn and be integrated in each one of those SaaS offerings and how to restore data. Getting the data where you need it in the infrastructure can become a problem. Plus, Office 365 doesn't keep that additional copy of your data like most backup infrastructure diagrams require anymore. You don't want to just have all of your data saved in one place. You want to have it available across multiple media.
Oh, that's very important. So with that, I guess I'm not. Oh, we got one more coming in, right? There is so there's this question of export. Is there an export to PST for litigation review? There absolutely is. So any of this information can be exported to a PST, or that's for the Exchange side of it. When you get over into SharePoint or into OneDrive, we can export that out to a zip file. Those will then be put onto a URL that only you will have access to. And at the back, on the back side of the restoration, you'll be provided with an email for where that is, so you can get it, and then the data will be blown away in an appropriate amount of time. Then finally, and I guess we'll call this last question for now, is will there be a recording of this that we can share? Absolutely. So we are live recording.
I hope so.
Yeah. And so that'll be it. With that being said, we very much so appreciate everyone's time here. Karinne, do you have anything you need to add?
No, I appreciate you having me on to cover the pros and cons of the Office 365 infrastructure and how we can help fill those gaps.
Yeah, and we really appreciate you joining us here today. You know, it's always nice to have the experts straight from the source come and join us on these webinars. So thank you, and thank you all for attending today. As mentioned, there will be a recording, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.